Hi guys! Sorry for the bad quality audio. I'm recording on my headphone speaker, so it's not very good. But I kind of just wanted to fill the silence and explain some things that are going on screen because Procreate's native screen recording does not zoom and it has pretty bad resolution. So I thought it might be helpful to be able to point out what's happening for the detailed parts. If that's not interesting to you, you can totally feel free to mute it. So since a lot of you guys have been so supportive and encouraging, even more than a year after I posted my animatic, I figured I'd try to at least throw you a bone and put up the speed paint, even though, like I said, not very high quality. What I have right now is just the sketch. I've been working on this pride painting for quite a while now, actually for probably since before I posted the animatic, because I've never been especially good at coloring, and I've never liked coloring because I wasn't good at it. But I was really determined to color this piece and render it a little bit. So I just kept losing steam for it. But I came back to it this year with some renewed energy because I had learned some really valuable tips on coloring and lighting and shading and all that kind of good stuff. And it was really, really fun to experiment with what I had learned. So what I'm doing right here is obviously just sketching. So now what I'm doing is blocking out some flat colors to fill the silhouettes of each of the main girls' bodies. The reason I'm doing this is because it'll let me paint over the colors later with a clipping layer. And that'll just make it a lot easier to fill in big blocks of color without worrying about going outside of the lines and keeping to my shape that I laid out with my sketch and my line work. Because I don't really like to do a line heavy or very clean style when I'm drawing digitally, and this I feel like helps me kind of straddle the line and allow me to have lines more as the background element. What I'm doing now is tidying up those lines, and the reason changing the colors that I've used here is because I sketched the girls in different colors, so that raises the contrast so I can see the lines better. So just filling in all the little bits and edges and making sure that there are no gaps, no white pixels left over inside the silhouette. This would be a lot easier if I just did all of my sketching in black, but I like to use signature colors for each of the characters when I'm drawing. I just think it's fun. Here we have blocking in the skin tones, and I have never been good at skin tones of any kind, so these get a fair bit of adjustment every time I'm drawing, but I think by the end of this video, they look a lot more natural and a lot more balanced. I like to do all of my drawings do everything at once, loosely, and then come back and refine everything at once and again like that, instead of polishing up one element and then moving on to the others. I find that way it keeps the overall look of the drawing consistent. If I lose steam at some point, then I just have an overall kind of messy drawing instead of a 50% messy drawing with 50% of it cleaned up and finished. Where I'm at now is working on the irises and lips on Aisha, and more of the details in her coloring. I really struggled with getting her lip gloss to kind of look the correct color over her skin tone, and I figured out eventually that it looked a lot better if I colored in her actual lip color underneath and then did the lip gloss translucent on top. Kind of obvious, but you know, sometimes you miss the forest for the trees. Alright, and what I'm moving on to here is I decided I didn't want Musa to be wearing skinny jeans, partly because it's not Y2K, and partly because I think Musa is just kind of she's more of a hip-hop style gal, and I think she likes to be loose and comfy. Most of the pride flags are self-explanatory, probably for most of you, but for anyone who isn't familiar with them, Stella's is pansexual, Roxy is trans, she's a trans girl, Aisha is a lesbian, Musa is asexual, Bloom is a bi-lesbian, and will be colored in soon here are Flora's intersex flag and Techna's autism / demigirl flag. And for the more eclectic ones of those, in my version of the story, Techna, her perception of her gender is very affected by being autistic, so that's something that she likes to incorporate in her identity. And Bloom really only experiences attraction to women for the most part. She identifies strongly with being a lesbian, but she also feels a connection to bisexuality for a lot of personal and historical reasons for her. Getting into now is little details that fall outside of the main block silhouette of the characters, so little hair tendrils, and also accenting the hair color. More blushing, which is pretty hard to see, but it's happening. And now we're getting into shading. Down there on Aisha, you can see. The most important thing to making your life easier when you're shading is picking your light source first and knowing just what direction it's coming from and what color the light is going to be. So if you have a natural light source like the sun, it's probably going to be yellow or maybe orange toned light. So you're going to want to be highlighting with a yellow or orange tone. and just follow the shapes that you've drawn to find where a shadow would naturally be cast on the opposite direction of the light source. I still struggle with that a lot, as you can see, kind of trying to figure out where the light would naturally fall on Stella's hot bod, but I'm pretty happy with what I ended up with. I decided this drawing was really boring against a flat background, so I threw in these pinwheels, just using like signature colors from each of the girls, and the shadow layers contrast, which I then realized was on the opposite side of where it should be, given my light source and shading, so I had to give it a quick move. Because Stella's staff was an additional light source, I then had to put additional lighting on her face and then on her flag and bloom, because I realized it should be reflecting onto her too. And then I went and did some additional accent lights. And then we have more or less done. Thanks so much for all your support, guys. I'll try to upload again sooner than this one.